Hello and welcome to 5 Things. The premise, for those who don't know, well, it's pretty simple. One classic video game, 5 awesome facts to go with it. It's what's commonly known as a pretty good deal. Andy, tell them what's on the agenda.
Today's game is Robotron, a game that I consider the purest gameplay experience available.
That's right, it's Robotron, robocalyptic fun for the whole family, and a game deservedly considered a stone-cold classic. So strap in, because 5 facts incoming in 3, and 2, and number 1. Robotron was heavily inspired by the dystopian future detailed in George Orwell's classic novel 1984. The men behind the game, Eugene, Jarvis, and Larry DeMar, loved the concept of an Orwellian world, and so developed the idea into the game's plot. Given that 1984 itself was only a few years away, they decided to set the game in the future, and so it was that the game setting was moved to the now iconic 2084. Number 2. The game's famous dual joystick design was developed by Jarvis, who created the system based on problems he'd encountered from his own experiences. Prior to beginning development, Jarvis injured his right hand in an accident. The hand was still in a cast when he returned to work, which prevented him from using a traditional joystick. Furthermore, while in rehab, Jarvis began thinking of the game Berserk. While Jarvis enjoyed the title, he was dissatisfied with the game's control scheme. More specifically, in that Berserk used a single joystick to move the on-screen character and a single button to fire the weapon. This would cause the character to shoot in whichever way he was facing. One thing Jarvis noticed, however, was that if the fire button was held down, the character would remain stationary, and that the joystick could then be used to fire in any direction. This method of play is what inspired Jarvis to add a second joystick. A joystick solely dedicated to aiming the direction that bullets could be shot. Number 3. After the success of Robotron, the game's developer VidKids had planned to release a number of sequels for the game. Unfortunately, the video game's crash of '83 put those plans on hold. And yes, while many see 1983's Blaster a sequel of sorts, owing to it seemingly being set in the same world as Robotron, many others feel that, given the title's huge departure in terms of style from Robotron, that it isn't a true sequel, and that its shared universe setting was merely done to help market the game. Thus, it could be argued that a bona fide sequel to Robotron has never actually been made. Number 4. Despite being one half of the team behind some of the biggest arcade hits of the 80s, Robotron co-developer Larry DeMar became one of video gaming's highest profile casualties from the crash of '83. While Jarvis would go back to college before later re-entering the industry, DeMar returned to developing pinball machines, a job he continued doing until 1999, wherein he created the company Leading Edge Design, a company that specializes in slot-style games for online casinos. Number 5. Given its hyperactive emphasis on all-out action, it might surprise you to learn that Robotron was originally going to be a much more passive game, a game in which the player wasn't actually able to shoot at all. Instead, the game had you herding robot enemies together and killing them by making them walk into electrodes. After playing a prototype version of the game, Jarvis and DeMar came to the conclusion that it was just, well, boring, and so decided to change things up. In an interview detailing the process, Jarvis said, "Pacifism has its limits. Gandhi the video game would have to wait. It was time for some killing action." I'll say one thing, Eugene, when you're right, you're most definitely right. Thanks ever so much for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, check us out on Twitter, follow on Facebook, and get down to Arcade Club itself, home to Europe's largest collection of classic arcade cabinets, including Robotron itself. We'll be waiting.